Hey everyone, today we're going to be taking a look at 10 chess fundamentals. If you've ever played a game in chess and just found yourself lost right out the opening, or maybe you had a winning position but just could not translate it, learning these fundamentals will surely set you off in the right track. But before we start, my name is Daniel and this is Zen Chess, and whether you're a beginner to chess, casual player that just wants to improve their games, or someone who takes this game seriously, I hope to add some value to your games, and if you do enjoy the video, please consider subscribing and liking, as it does go a long way. And without further ado, let's get on with the first fundamental, which is open files for rooks. Now, in order for us to understand what an open file is, we need to define what a closed or half open file is. A closed file is when you have two opposing color pawns on that file. A half open file is when there is only one pawn standing between the rook and the file. And an open file is, as you can see here, a file that has no pawns and the rook can dominate the entire file. Now, why is this so good? As you can see in this position, white has doubled rooks, but they're staring at two pawns. They're in a closed file. But black's rook can see the entire file, which means that his one rook is actually better than both our rooks, which is staring into two pawns. Now, the second fundamental we'll be taking a look at is the weaknesses of doubled pawns. If you take a look at this position, you'll notice that black is attacking our knight with their bishop. But what you'll also notice is that our knight is pinned to our rook. Now, we don't want to allow this capture to be made. But let's say we do, let's say we don't notice it, and we make a random move. If black captures, we will have doubled pawns. Now, the weakness is black has three connected pawns, and we have two pawns sitting on top of each other. This pawn will have trouble moving forward, and this pawn will move without protection. If we play this game out, it is most likely black that is going to win, with the pawns connected and our pawns having trouble moving, and our rook is sort of blocked in. We will have a hard time trying to win this. On the contrary, what we can do to remedy the situation is to allow a rook trade. In this case, if black tries to capture our knight, we will simply capture the rook. And if he does not capture the knight, and instead moves his rook out of the way, we can move our own knight out of the way, not allowing the capture anymore. Now, the third fundamental we'll look at is not moving the same piece multiple times in the opening. When playing a game of chess, it is important to get all your pieces out as fast as possible. If we start a game with e4, e5, you bring the bishop out and they bring the knight out, it would not be a good idea to move the bishop again to try and pin the knight. What this does is it wastes a move, because you could have already gotten the bishop there in one move. Instead, you took two moves to take it there. And secondly, we are not developing any pieces. We are moving the same piece that we had already developed. Instead, focus on moving your knight out and preparing to castle. The fourth fundamental is do not block your pieces in. If we start a game again with e4, e5, and you move your bishop to d3, if you take a look at this position, you will notice that you're blocking your own pawn in, which is also blocking your bishop in. Now, this will set you back deep in the opening. You cannot get your pieces out fast enough. Although this is a equal position if you play things right, it is still not a good idea. Now, the fifth fundamental is simplification. If you are ever up material and you have the opportunity to simplify a position by trading pieces, it is almost always a good idea to, especially if you're a beginner. It is oftentimes better to just trade things off and keep the game simple, as opposed to keeping pieces on the board and things may get complicated and you could lose your winning advantage. In this position, it is black to play, and black can capture our bishop. And this brings us into equality, because we are now equal in pieces. But what it allows us to do is to force a trade of rooks. Now, why is this so good for white? It's because our king can actually come in and save the day by capturing black's pawn and promoting to a queen and winning. The sixth fundamental is checks, captures, and attacks. This is basically a checklist that you can do before making any move, and it involves checking for checks, checking if you have any captures that you can make or any attacks. And for this position, it is black to play. And if you want to use the checklist and look for checks, captures, and attacks, you will end up with this check, which is checkmate. And the seventh fundamental kind of ropes back into the checks, captures, and attacks, which is prophylactic thinking. Prophylactic thinking is the art of anticipating moves. When you do the checklist of checks and captures and attacks, you not only want to do it for yourself, but you also want to do it from your opponent's perspective. If you do the checks, captures, and attack list for yourself, you may notice good moves, but you also want to apply it for your opponent. And prophylactic is different in the fact that you want to anticipate moves. Instead of looking at immediate dangers of what your opponent can do or what you can do to your opponent, you may notice a weak square or a weak piece on your side, and maybe you can move a piece to defend that square or that piece, or maybe a bishop can come out and attack something. But if you anticipate that move, you can maybe move a pawn to that and stop the bishop from coming out in the first place. Now the eighth fundamental is castling early. If you want to play the Ruy Lopez, it is perfect for castling as fast as possible, because if you play e4, e5, bring the knight out, they bring their knight out, and you bring out the bishop, it allows you to castle as fast as possible. And if they bring their knight out attacking your pawn, it is actually still safe to castle, because you're bringing your king to safety, but you're also activating your rook at the same time. So it is actually a multi-purpose move, and if you can make a move that does multiple things at the same time, it is often the best move. Now the ninth fundamental is recognizing immediate threats. We as white in this position played our rook to d1, which is attacking black's bishop and also pinning it to their queen. But what we failed to miss is that they have a check, which is actually a devastating check, because black in this position has mate in 2, which is as follows. What you want to do in this position, instead of simply making a move that just attacks a piece, you want to look at what moves they have or what they can play. And if you follow the checks, captures, and attacks, you will notice that black has a check in this position and you can defend it. You can anticipate it and defend it ahead of time. Now the 10th and final fundamental we'll look at is king activity in the endgame. Once you reach the endgame, it is crucial for you to activate your king, because your pieces, which are your pawns, your rooks, they probably could create an attack on their own, but it is much smarter to bring your king into the game, which is kind of weak in the opening and in the middle game, but in the end game it can actually be your most powerful asset, escorting your pawns down. And if the rooks are traded off, it makes the king even more powerful and even more valuable, because otherwise the opponent's king can just come and gobble up all our pawns. What we can do instead of that is bringing your king into the action and help your pawns by escorting them with the king down the board. And if you play your moves right and you do have an advantage, you should win the game. Now I understand chess can be difficult, and a large part of chess is psychological. It can be stressful, it can be overwhelming at first, but if you really are serious about the game and you do want to get better, just taking it step by step and realizing that losing is not a crime. Actually, losing is what makes us all better. You don't play chess to not blunder, you play chess to play the game. You want to learn, you want to get better, you just have to take the game move by move. And if you play slow and steady, it is better than someone who wants to win a world championship in one move. And definitely play more lengthy quality games as opposed to blitz or bullet. Playing more lengthy games allows you to think more, allows you to hone in your skills, especially if you are a new player. It is always good to just play some controlled, slow games and just work your way up. And that's going to be it for today's video, and if you guys did enjoy, please consider subscribing and liking, and I would love to hear your feedback in the comments. And Fred has somehow managed their way onto my head, so if you guys want to see more from Fred, please do subscribe. Peace out.